Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Out of Crazytown. I am so excited to have Jessica Dineen with us today. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I'm so excited. What an honor.
This is incredible. I have had the honor of listening to you in an interview with Dr. Nadine Macaluso and was so impressed with some stuff we're going to talk about today. And I was super excited to have you on the show. But I want to tell everyone just really quick a little bit about your background. You are a licensed professional clinical counselor, EMDR therapist, certified narcissistic abuse treatment clinician, which you received that certification through Dr. Ramani's program. Is that right?
I did. Yes.
That's amazing. So if you guys don't even know that you can do that, that's you clinicians can do that. And so it's
Mhm.
very special that she has that certification using trauma-informed approaches, including EMDR, parts work, which I'm going to ask you about later, and
Mhm.
nervous system healing. You bring both professional expertise and personal understanding to this work.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, so happy to have you here. I really kind of want the overarching theme today to talk, just so listeners kind of know where I'm headed, to talk about self-trust because it is
Mhm.
such a massive issue. We don't
Mhm.
realize how much it's being eroded in these relationships. And
Right.
when we get out or get away, we don't realize how much work we have to do to reclaim that. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Like, I could not have said that better. That is one of the primary things I see clinically that happens as a result of these relationships.
Yep. Self-trust. And so you guys, it takes some awareness as well. And so that's why I think it's great if you can take time and listen to this episode today, because we're going to help you have that awareness to help rebuild that self-trust, because that is one of the key pieces on the road to healing. So first
Mhm.
of all, would you mind telling us a little bit about what led you to do this work, Jessica?
Yes, absolutely. So, as crazy as it sounds, I knew I wanted to be a therapist by the age of 14, very
Awesome.
young. But I had a mother who struggled with severe mental illness and a father who had many narcissistic traits. And honestly, at the time in my childhood, I didn't really have the language for what narcissistic abuse is. Most children don't. When you
No.
grow up in these dynamics, you really don't have the language for that. But I always knew my body never felt safe.
Yeah.
So, fast forward 5 years after leaving home, I then met my ex-husband. We had a very short engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, so many people can relate to that. And then about a month into our marriage, I realized I had married another version of my father, which
Mm.
was devastating. I thought I had tried so hard to not repeat the patterns, but so many times this is just a result of trauma and it's in our nervous system and it's what's familiar. And so then coming out of that, it took probably, I don't know, 9 or 10 years in that marriage where I felt so stuck and so many negative somatic symptoms were happening. I was experiencing panic attacks, hives all over my body, digestive issues, and my body was literally screaming, we cannot hold this trauma any longer.
Wow.
Like this lives inside of you. And even aside from the somatic symptoms, I really didn't want my daughters growing up seeing that that's what love looked like.
Yep. That resonates with me so much.
Yes. So part of my journey really required me to build that trust back in self, listen to my intuition, even though I maybe didn't have the language growing up for what that was. I had to learn that on my own. I had to learn this is not okay. This is not
Mhm.
okay for my children to see. This is not okay for me to live. And I got out of that relationship. So now part of my work is helping survivors recovering from these relationships or still in these relationships, learning to rebuild that trust with themselves. So
Yeah.
it all kind of came full circle.
That is amazing. And we're so glad you're here doing this work because I know you're helping so many people. And we're going to talk about where your practice is and everything later for those listening. But you mentioned something about like you realized in your body the somatic effects that the abuse had. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know when I
Mhm.
left, I filed for divorce. I was stuck under the same roof as my abuser for
Oh,
a year before I could move out.
oh,
It was
wow.
absolute
Yeah.
torture. So I get out, I'm living in this new house, and I am still ruminating. I am still racked
Mm,
with fear. I don't feel the freedom that I thought I would feel. What is
yeah.
that about? Can you speak to that and like what it is, that we still can't quite grasp, get feeling that, feeling of freedom?
Yes, exactly. So many survivors assume that leaving is going to provide immediate relief. I get it. So did I. Most people do. But the common experience that happens afterward is our nervous system, even though the circumstances have changed, our nervous system hasn't fully healed yet. And a lot of times, post separation abuse occurs in these dynamics. Whenever you try to leave, the person who you're leaving oftentimes wants to make you pay for leaving. Like the narrative is often, how could they? The audacity to leave. So then we see this abuse manifesting through ongoing litigation abuse, through constant court filings, financial abuse, harassment, stalking, using the children as weapons. They often become a new avenue for control. So even though you've left, it just makes sense that your nervous system isn't fully caught up yet, because sometimes these dynamics are continuing on afterward.
And I think that going back to self-trust, I hadn't done the work yet to know that I could handle this person. I could extract myself from this person, that things were going to be okay, that, I just hadn't built that. I can't say it better than self-trust in
Yeah.
myself, that I was going to be able to handle this going forward. And so the
Yeah.
fear just kept going.
Honestly, sometimes an analogy I use with clients too that I think describes a little bit of what you're saying is, whenever you rescue a foster animal or something like that, and they've been kept in cages,
Yeah.
and you get them to the new home and you open the little crate or the cage that they're in, and they won't come out. They put one paw out and then they immediately bring it back in. They might come out for a little bit, look left, look right, then they come in because it feels safer in the cage than in the new environment. So then it's part of creating that constant, predictable safety for this new animal where they see time and time again after repetition that their new environment is safe, and they realize they can come out for a minute, they can hang out for a few minutes, they can come back, but then over time the animal eventually leaves the crate and they trust that their new surrounding is safe. And
Mhm.
that's often what happens in abusive dynamics. We leave the relationship and we feel as though we have to stay small and we have to stay stuck in this cage until we start creating these new neural pathways that say, okay, I'm safe now, I can create space in my life, I can take up all the space in the room, I can realize that even though my nervous system is reacting to staying small and staying caged, it's no longer in that cage. And it's just part of rebuilding and growing on that constant new environment of safety.
Wow, that's amazing. That analogy totally nails it, because I think about how I was behaving even with my own attorney, or the steps I was trying to take during the divorce in the very beginning, or even when I first moved out, to how I
Mhm.
behaved at the end, where I finally was like, oh, F this, F that. We're not doing that. We're not, whereas before I was like,
Right.
I don't want to piss him off, so I
Yeah.
think that will resonate with a lot of people. And so going back to why our self-trust gets eroded in the first place, obviously gaslighting is such a major component of
Yes.
an abuser's control. How
Mhm.
does exactly gaslighting erode our self-trust?
Oh, this is a big one. So, gaslighting in its very essence is designed to make you question your own reality. Sometimes I'll even teach clients where this term originated from. Like, I'm sure you're familiar, the 1938 British play Gaslight. The manipulative husband very intentionally and secretly dims the light in the home to where the wife begins to question what she's seeing. She thinks she's imagining it, and he convinces her. He tells her that what she is saying and what she's seeing is she's going crazy. It's designed to make her question her own memory and her own sanity. So then when you think about that in abusive dynamics, you are confronting someone with the behavior that you're seeing. Maybe you're confronting them about the abuse or about feelings or whatever it may be. And part of that abuse is making you question your memory. That is
Hmm.
devastating when you're then like, I know what I remember, but they are so convincing. Am I remembering this correctly? Am I
Yeah.
going crazy? And so it's really devastating to see that part of the abuse is designed to question memory and sanity, which of course creates a fracture within self trust.
Yeah.
Whenever we're then questioning our own thoughts, our own memories, our own feelings, how could it not fracture that self trust? And that makes sense. There's a lot of compassion that I work with clients in that. So then healing becomes about rebuilding that relationship with yourself,
Yeah.
giving yourself time, realizing this is an effect of the abuse, but we can always rebuild self trust in time.
Absolutely. What are a couple of small steps someone could take to start rebuilding self-trust?
I like to say, in rebuilding self trust, you want to, sometimes I'll even joke with my clients, I'm like, learn to date yourself. Like you're no longer in this relationship, but take yourself on a date. Like, figure out what you like. So much of what's happened to you is your self identity being stripped. You're learning to accommodate all the needs of the abuser. You're anticipating every blow up that they're going to have, every little thing that makes them upset. You're walking on eggshells. So then when you rebuild self trust, you really have to get to know yourself better. You need
Yeah.
to figure out what lights you up. Is it going and dancing? Is it taking a new class? Is it journaling? Is it getting coffee with a friend? So self trust starts with learning yourself a little bit better and then giving yourself permission to live that full life once again.
I love that. And I'll just put some examples to that. For instance, I can honestly say I wasn't sure what kind of music I liked when I left because
Mm-hmm.
the music was imposed on me and this is what we're listening to because his cool, hip, rich friends listen to this. So that's what we're listening to. And
Mm-hmm.
also how I dressed. I mean, I was told a couple times that he was embarrassed of what I was wearing.
Wow.
When I left the house or where I shopped or what the kids wore. And so
Mm,
building self-trust, just going out and buying things and putting on my own outfit and like realizing no one's going to criticize me for it. And yes, I do like this. I don't care what people think.
mm-hmm.
And decorating the house was another one,
Mm-hmm.
and so like buying new things, whether it was a painting to go over the couch or whatever, and then not second
Yes.
guessing it, and living with it, being like, no,
Yes.
I freaking and I don't care if anybody likes this painting that's over my couch. I like it.
Yes.
And so I know those were
Yes.
some things that I realized when I left the relationship that I'd been criticized for, I had been told were stupid, I was bad at, and that
Mm-hmm.
no, this is what we like. We don't like that. This is
Yeah.
what we like.
Yeah. That's so well said, Jackie. Like, yeah, part of that, not questioning yourself, not doubting yourself, like, oh, I like this painting. Oh, I like this couch. Same for me. I went and bought like this huge olive green couch. It was so colorful, but I was like, I don't care. I am so happy. This is what I like. And I'm not going to question that. I don't care if someone walks into my home and is like, whoa, that's a really green couch. I love the green couch.
I
So
love
then
it.
we're teaching people, what do you like? And trust what you like. What do you not like? Also, trust that. Like, whenever someone says something to you and your body gets that feeling of, oh, like that feels not right in my gut, I want them to trust that. I want them to
Yes.
learn, okay, now I know what I like, but equally as important to that is what do I not like?
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because I mentioned awareness in the beginning, and this is totally what I want listeners to listen to. I had this talk with my girls 2 days ago, and they're 22 and 18 years old. And so we were talking about when things don't feel right in your body. And it's so important to acknowledge that. And I think you do this with your clients in your work as well. But it was so fascinating. My younger daughter said hers starts like it goes up the back of her neck and then goes into her head when
Mm,
something doesn't feel right.
mm,
And my other daughter was
hmm.
like, no, 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 mine runs down my arms into my hands. And I was like, no, mine
Wow.
sits in my chest. And I was like, whoa, I've never asked my kids before. But I
Wow.
love it because I just always love teaching my daughters about
Yeah.
when
Yes.
things don't
Yes.
feel right. We can never have
Exactly.
enough of those conversations, but it is
Hmm.
it is important for all of us to realize that because clearly we all feel it
Hmm.
differently.
Yeah, it's so true. What a beautiful thing that your daughters are able to do that. That is
Yes.
such a gift you can pass down in parenting. I like that happens with my daughters as well, even if they, and this happens sometimes when I'm teaching clients too, when you're going through divorcing a narcissist and you have to co-parent with them. And you're not always going to have the easiest days. Like
Yeah.
there are going to be days when you are very human and you feel triggered. There is a trauma response happening. You don't have to pretend like you're some robot and like you're unaffected. If my daughters ever saw me having a hard day and they were like, oh, mommy, are you okay? And, I didn't even realize I thought I was keeping everything together. It's part of building that self trust and trusting their intuition, where then I would acknowledge and say, oh, you know what, babe? Like, oh, I am having kind of a hard day. This has nothing to do with you. I'm fine. But yeah, good job noticing because they are so intuitive and they can notice these
Yes.
emotional shifts. And so when you can then teach your children to validate how is your body feeling in response to this? What are you noticing in others? Trust that. That's so important.
And like you just said, what are you noticing in others? And keep validating their instincts are right. Because let's go back to the gaslighting we just talked to. That's the first thing.
Yes.
I always say, like, isolation is one of the first things, and then doubting yourself is the second thing, which all speaks back to
Yes.
the self trust. So if you do have
Yeah.
children and you're listening to this, it is such a great thing. It doesn't matter how young they are, but just keep
Yeah.
validating their instincts. Yeah.
Exactly. Because what if the narcissist loses their temper and goes out of control. And then whenever you're in the relationship, you confront that. Wow, that felt really scary. What are you talking about? You're overreacting. I wasn't upset. You were the one that got so upset.
Yeah.
So then you start questioning yourself. You start questioning your memory. You start questioning your sanity. So then when you can teach your kids, you can teach yourself, you can really heal by saying, no, what happened was abusive. I know how my body felt. That made me feel terrified. And now I realize what's happening. I'm
Yeah.
being gaslit.
So speaking of, when you're tied in these, either the divorce is continuing on or it's over and you continue to have to co-parent with this person,
Mm-hmm.
is it
Mm-hmm.
possible to start the healing while you're still feels like you're in the middle of this conflict, never ending potentially conflict?
Yes, absolutely. So no contact is not always possible, right?
Right.
Like you still a lot of times have to co-parent, but healing is. And I think that's where we start seeing success, or I start seeing it clinically with clients, is whenever they can realize, okay, I'm still in this storm, but I'm going to start living my life now. Because part of the abuse is making you believe the lie that you will never be free of them, that they will
Yes.
get to live rent free in your mind forever. And they do not. They don't
Mm-mm.
have that control over you anymore. So then when you can get to the place to say, okay, I'm still in this, they have a pathological disorder. They are never going to change. So long as they are living and breathing, this is just part of who they are. And the radical acceptance that comes within that of saying, okay, I see who they are. They're not going to change. We co parent together. They're probably always going to be creating some kind of storm because they don't know how to self regulate. Does that mean I have to put my life on hold forever, holding my breath, hoping they'll change? No, absolutely not. We don't want that. We want to
Mhm.
start seeing, in spite of who they are and what they will always do, I am now going to give myself permission to live my life and realize on the days whenever my mind is looping and ruminating, that's part of an old script that our nervous system has learned, but we can unlearn that and we can say, oh, I'm catching myself. I'm looping because my body is making me think that's keeping me safe. But
Yeah.
really, that's part of the control. I need to release that and realize, what can I do today? Oh, wow, look at that. The sun's out. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to breathe in some fresh air. I'm going to realize I am safe now. And even though they're doing that, I still get to have the best day if I want to.
And giving yourself permission. I love that because you're right that they are going to do everything to keep you engaged because that is how they keep the control post separation. And they will also sense you getting stronger and there will be some
Mm-hmm.
retaliation and some redoubled efforts to sort
Mm-hmm.
of keep you engaged. And so it's practicing, like you mentioned, building the new neural pathways. It is practicing reminding yourself, I am safe. I actually don't have to respond to this, but you have to take those baby steps to do it. Endure their reaction. I would
Mm-hmm.
say brace for impact. We're
Yeah.
gonna send this message and then we're gonna brace for impact and we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna let it go by because and you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna realize the world didn't end. You're fine. It was a veiled threat. But yeah, they're gonna keep trying to keep you, reacting like you said,
They
and
are.
live in your head. It is the
Yeah.
only way they can maintain control, and that's the game.
Yeah, it is. We want to starve them of that supply.
We want to starve them of that supply. And, I think sometimes we think that starving them of that supply is in an effort to control them and hopefully make them, come after you less. But we kind of have to
Mm-hmm.
shift that mindset because it implies that we have some sort of control over them.
Right.
And so I kind of want to tweak that because even me myself, I have mentioned that, like, hopefully, like, you ignore, and they come at you less.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
really, the real goal is where do you have control?
Yes.
And it's realizing that in the not responding is really about you. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
building that safety and that self trust in yourself
Mm-hmm.
and it to insulate you from reacting
Mm-hmm.
to their
Mm-hmm.
efforts, right? I mean, would
Yeah.
you agree that that's really at the heart of
Yes.
what this is about?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so happy you made that distinction because, yeah, it's not about, ooh, how can I get back at them or how can I control them? It's really your brain is going to continue feeding what you feed it. So we're
Yeah.
starving that supply for you, not for them. So
Hmm.
really, we want to teach our brain, okay, I know that it feels safe to keep looping on this, but hold on a second. I actually want to create a new script. Like I am safe right now. So then we start seeing like, how does that manifest in my daily life? Whenever they're sending a message and I feel triggered, and I feel like, how could they send this? How could they think this about me? How could they say this? Oh, that's part of what my brain is doing to try to keep me safe. So I want to starve that thought. And I instead want to fill it with self energy, where I'm then pouring that same energy back into myself
Yeah.
rather than part of the old script that did what it needed to do to stay safe in that relationship.
I think that is an important distinction as well. And so many people, though, still need to come and see a therapist and help work through this because this is all great advice, And yes, you guys go out and try all of these things. But one thing, Jessica, I mentioned at the beginning that I heard you talk about that was so amazing to me, and I just had not honestly heard a lot of therapists doing this, is I know you do EMDR, but you had mentioned parts work. And for anybody
Mhm.
out there that hasn't done this, can you please explain this because it makes so much sense to me and it seems revolutionary.
Yes, it really is. I felt the same way when I discovered it too. So, parts work is part of the internal family systems model and therapy by Richard Schwartz. And basically, we all have parts that have developed throughout our lives to keep us safe. But at the core of all of us, we have self energy. When we are in self energy, we are creative, compassionate, courageous. We get clarity. That's the moments whenever you feel most you, when you're
Mm,
like, oh, wow, I feel in flow. That's when you're in self energy. So then, whenever a part becomes activated, that is like a hypervigilant part, or an anxious part, or a sad part, or an abandoned part, whatever it may be. So, my work with clients then becomes when they're coming to me and they're talking about, maybe an interaction that happened with their ex or something they're struggling with, I immediately hear, oh, this is a part. That's not self energy. So then it becomes, okay, tell me a little bit about this anxiety that you're experiencing in your body. And it's like, well, it just never goes away. I just want to get rid of it. Okay, well, instead of getting rid of it, let's try getting to know it a little bit better, because this anxious part actually has worked very hard throughout your whole life to keep you safe. So the more we can understand it, the more we can unburden it. We don't want to, in Richard Schwartz's model, he has a book called No Bad Parts, which I highly recommend. And the whole premise of that is none of your parts are bad. There are no bad parts, even the ones that feel really big and impulsive and firefighter almost. They just want to put out the flames and they're really impulsive. Those parts aren't bad. Like, all of these parts are doing what they need to do to keep us safe. So then when we can look and say, okay, this part developed when I was 14 years old, when I was going through childhood trauma. What does this part need from me now? Okay, this part maybe needs to know that I am now 39 years old. Like, it needs to be updated that I'm
yeah.
not this little girl anymore. Because so often when these triggers are happening in clients, it is the young part that gets activated. So it's not current, present, wise self that is interacting. It's this younger part. And we just want to help these parts get updated that we can handle it now.
That is amazing. And so you use it in conjunction with the EMDR, is that right?
I do, yes. So in EMDR, when we're reprocessing these traumatic memories, a lot of times the trauma memories are younger parts that experience the trauma. It's the 14-year-old girl that
Ah,
experienced trauma. It's the young woman in her marriage that experienced trauma. It's the new mom who experienced the trauma of being all alone and being in an abusive marriage. We really want to take the trauma memories and combine it with parts work so that we are helping reprocess and help unburden that certain part that held that trauma memory.
and then how would you say that all of that helps your clients build self-trust?
Yeah, using EMDR and parts
Yeah,
work together.
yeah, yeah.
A sign of success I see in my clients is whenever this is not, I'm going to answer this in a roundabout way. This is not
Sure.
to say that parts will never be activated.
Okay.
It's more saying that we understand when a part gets activated and we know how to comfort it. So then that contributes to self trust, because the client is coming to me saying, oh, I noticed my abandonment part got triggered this past week, but I was able to comfort it. So
Mm,
that is self trust. That is self looking at the part and saying, I've got this now. Sometimes I even use this analogy of being a CEO at a table, and you have all your parts. You have the people pleasing part, you have the anxious part, you have the hypervigilant part, whatever it may be. But CEO is self. And so you do a morning meeting saying, okay, everyone, how's everyone doing? Does anyone have any questions or concerns for today? And some days, all of your parts may be like, we're panicked. There's a fire. Like, what do we do? And some days it may just be one part. It's like the abandonment part raises their hand. They're like, hey, like, I'm really struggling today. I think I'm going to do this, this, this. Self trust is then self being able to say to that part, it's okay. I've got it now. Do you want to come sit closer to me? Like, if
yeah.
I need your help, if I need to like think ahead about something and plan something, then I could really use your help. But for now, I've got it. So I
And
don't know if that answers that,
it
but
totally does, because what comes to mind is the fact that there will always be problems. There will always be obstacles. There will always be this, or unfortunately, this person may be reappearing, with
hmm
conflict in your life for years to come.
hmm
But the fact that you can handle it is okay.
hmm
And the fact that you understand your reactions toward it just make
yes.
you have more. And at the end of the day, it's getting your control back, because we
Mm,
can't, always control what obstacles pop up or what
yeah.
conflicts pop up, but we can learn to trust ourselves more and more, so that no matter what it is,
Yeah.
we got this. We got this. And just listening you describe like all the different parts and like where they come from, I'm thinking back, because when I was 14, my mom died of cancer. She had it for 5 years. I
Um,
was the child that was attached to her hip my whole childhood.
mm,
And not that,
hmm
my other sisters were very close to her as well, but my
hmm
dad was completely out to lunch, understandably, when she passed away.
hmm
He
hmm
became kind of physically absent, not just mentally absent. Honestly, money
hmm
became scarce because we moved and switched jobs so
Yeah.
we could be near. And I'm just realizing like the abandonment and then fears around money as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
Not only fed into my fears later, and those parts, were significant parts of me, but they also kind of made me a good candidate for why,
hmm
my
hmm
narcissistic pathological person targeted me.
Exactly.
Because I was kind of willing to give up control of the money, or willing, because all
hmm
those things sort of scared me. And then they
Yeah.
were all triggered later when, when the abuse really kicked in. So that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's probably, if I had a client bringing that issue to me, it would be like, tell me a little bit more about that part that there was fear of finances. And
Mhm.
so many times parts are driving the ship. Like they are the ones in total control. We want to help unblend that, where it's not the
Mhm.
parts that are leading, this young part that's like, I'm scared of what's going to happen if I don't have money. We have to choose this person. It's then saying like, okay, this is a part that's activated, and let's get to know this part a little bit better. So we want to unblend that to where then it can be self energy that's saying, I see why you're scared. That makes sense, but I'm here now. Like I
Yeah.
am this age currently, and I'm here to help you. That way, the part doesn't feel like it's their responsibility to manage what's happening, and that self is in control and will be able to take care of it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's knowing you don't have to know all the answers. You'll figure things out. Again, feeding into the self-trust, and self-trust equals confidence,
hmm
right? And which bleeds
hmm
into all areas of our life. That all makes so much sense. Wow, Jessica, thank you so much. Is there,
Of course.
on your personal journey, and then obviously
hmm
you've been working so much with clients in this space with narcissistic abuse, is there any other overarching theme that you've noticed with clients, or any like parting thoughts that you would like to leave listeners with today?
Yeah, I guess I would say, this is kind of piggybacking off of some of what we've already said, but I am always working with my clients on taking up space.
Mm,
This is one of the most important parts of healing, in my opinion, is the ability to realize that they have the permission to take up all the space in their life.
mm,
So often they have stayed so small to keep other people safe and to protect other people's images and to do what needed to be done at the time. But
yeah,
now a sign of healing is whenever they're coming to me, and rather than trying to understand the narcissist more or trying to understand the best response or the way that will like get to them most, I want them instead shifting that energy back into themselves, where they can say, I'm allowed to take up space now. Like
yeah,
narcissists love taking up space. They want to take up all the space in the room. That's part of their grandiosity. But
yes.
then we want to say, okay, they've had their time. Now it's your turn. Like, how do you take up space in your life? And make sure you take up all the space, because you're allowed to do that. And that takes a minute for their nervous system to learn that that really is safe to pursue their life and to pursue it to the fullest extent possible. So we take baby steps toward that. But then when they're coming to me and telling me about all of their accomplishments,
Mm.
what they're doing in their life that brings them joy again, that is a huge sign to me that they're on the right track.
That's makes so much sense. It ties everything together, because you're right. The whole goal of the narcissist is to take up space. I mean, they don't want you doing anything without second guessing if
hmm
it would be okay with them. I mean, going
Mm-hmm.
back to my examples of what I wore, what I bought to decorate the house
Yeah.
with, what I, so many things. And so they are literally like their tendrils are trying to grow into every single thought in every single part of your life. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is the space. And you need to reclaim all of that space for yourself. And it's how you
Mm-hmm.
rediscover yourself and again, build that trust.
So when they're taking up space, kind of, if we wanted to blend this with a little bit of parts work, if you were to type in online the 8 C's of self energy, a whole list is going to pop up. And I oftentimes tell clients, print out this list, memorize this list, learn it, because in the 8 C's of self energy, that's where there's creativity, compassion, courage, clarity, confidence, all the things that really help you connect and ground into self. And so then you can know when you're taking up space and when you're in self energy, like kind of when you look at that list, a lot of times that looks like something happens and you're able to give compassion to younger parts of yourself rather than judge them. So rather than
Mm.
look at, how could I have stayed so long? Like, how could I have not seen that? Oh, it was like right in front of me. We then want to see that shifting to compassion or clarity. Like, I love that younger version of me and what she had to do to just keep everything together. I love that girl so much. And then imagining yourself hugging her, that you're in self energy when you do that.
Mm.
Or whenever you're like, you know what? I'm going to write my book. This is what I want to do. I have a message to share. You are in self energy. In all these examples, you are taking up space and you are very much connected to self, which is so important for healing.
That's fantastic. And I'm obsessed with future because I always say too, is there is the pathological person's taking up all the space in our life. And that's what they continue to try to do post separation. It robs
Mm-hmm.
us of our ability to pause and think about our future and what we want and what we want
Mm-hmm.
that to look like. And that to me
Mm-hmm.
is one of the biggest thievery sort of things that they do when they steal from us is they steal our
Mm-hmm.
futures because we're stuck
Mm-hmm.
ruminating, we're stuck in fear of what they're going to
Mm-hmm.
do next, and we never take a moment out of our day to go, what is good going to look like? Like, what do I
Mm-hmm.
look like feeling joy again? What, and just start
Yeah.
to imagine what that
Mm-hmm.
is. And so I'm just a really big advocate of everyone taking time
Mm-hmm.
out of their day to think about their future and what happy and
Yes.
awesome looks like.
Yes, exactly. My divorce coach, actually, she worked with me on helping me imagine my future and so much of what I wanted to bring into my life. I want you to imagine yourself in that setting. What are you wearing? What do you look like? Think about that every single day. And at first, it felt very foreign. And I share this compassionately with clients. Like, when you first start to do this, it's going to feel weird. You're not going to believe it. You're going to be like, I don't know, that would be a nice thing to happen. That's probably never going to happen. That's okay. Have compassion for that part that is scared to dream of your future. Start working with that part. Okay, what are you scared will happen if we dream of our future? Well, we were never allowed to do that in that relationship. We had to focus on what they wanted. That wasn't allowed to dream of. Okay, that makes sense. There's compassion for that. But now we're safe. Now we are this age. Now let's give ourselves permission to dream of this future and bring it to fruition because it's safe to do that now.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you for summing all of that up in your words because it makes so much sense and it's even more impactful. I appreciate you. Jessica Dineen, thank you so much for being on Out of Crazytown. Okay, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on oc-traumatherapy.com or on Instagram at oc_traumatherapy. And thank you so much for having me, Jackie. What a gift. I'm so happy I got to be here.
Absolutely. And I just want everyone to know it's oc-traumatherapy.com. And the OC
Yes,
is for Orange County, meaning Southern California, just like so it puts
yes,
the memory in everyone's head as to what that is. But obviously, all those links will be in the show notes as well. So they
yes.
can
Thank you
find
so
you.
much.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. And we'll talk to you
Okay,
soon.
thanks. Okay, sounds good.